Well, good morning, brothers and sisters. It's Saturday morning. I came in early to do a short video and then also do the teaching that I had planned for this last week. But, it gets so hot in here by the evening on our Friday evenings when we do our study. It's still 100 degrees in here, right around that mark, and it's just too hot. And so a lot of you who have been praying for Ruth, for instance, know that she's had a heart attack. She actually had one here one evening. And so I think it's just too hot in here. So we're trying to figure something else out. So I thought I would come in on a Saturday morning before I start work and do a short video, just kind of reflecting on what's going on with Israel and Iran right now, because it appears that the end has begun, and we've been kind of waiting for this for quite a while now. We really, for I would say over a year, in my estimation, based on the prophetic timeline that God encrypted in the Psalms, this could have certainly happened a year ago, and that would have seemed like it was towards the end of the timeline or into the window for it to happen. But of course, there's 2 Peter 3:9, that comes into play, where that God doesn't want anyone to perish. So we should have known that He's going to push this thing. And I always said, God always shows up at the last second in my life, whether it's a bill that needs to be paid or something, and I don't know how it's going to happen. And next thing you know, sometimes He doesn't show up until what I think is kind of after the last second. But He does. He shows up, and He makes all things possible. And so He's always been good. But anyway, so I think that may be at play here also. He is waiting to the last minute. He knows the timeline. He has all this mapped out. Nothing that's happening is a surprise. However, it's a surprise to us because we're watching, we're waiting, we're doing exactly what Jesus said to do, which is to watch and wait, to not be caught off guard. And if you're watching this video, that's probably what you're doing in your life too, and I appreciate that, because that's pretty much what I do, besides trying to earn a living for my family and while we're waiting, because we can't just drop everything. The Lord never said to do that. In fact, He said, two will be working at the mill. So if you look at that in context, we're not supposed to be putting on white robes and sitting around waiting. We're supposed to be active not only in our jobs for our family, but also in the kingdom, which is super important. We need to be bearing fruit now like no other time. So I just wanted to come on. Israel, as you know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Israel attacked Iran. Basically, they've got to put an end to the nuclear program that they've created primarily to take out Israel. That is their end goal. They want to wipe Israel off the map. They've made that very clear for a long time, and so that obviously was kind of lurking on the calendar. We didn't know exactly what day this was going to happen. It could have happened a long time ago. It seems to me, I'm going to use an analogy. It seems to me like we've been in an airplane that's ready to land, but we've been circling the airport now in a holding pattern for a long time. It seems like it could have been, like I said earlier, it could have been a year ago when all this showdown happens. Even in October, I think it was, when Iran shot 300 plus missiles at Israel. It could have happened then, but it didn't. So it seems like this holding pattern has just been going on and on and on and on. And of course, we're excited to go home and be with the Lord and all of those who have gone on before us. But that wasn't God's plan, because He's giving us more time to bring in a more abundant harvest. There's a lot of people that are probably sitting on the fence and that they just need us to come along and just work with them, pray with them. Share the gospel with them. I think a lot of people are seeing the events of these days, and they can't put two and two together because they don't know what we know. But anyway, that's a different story. So getting back to the analogy, we've been circling the airport now for it seems like a very long time, and I think the plane has just landed. Now we are in a pattern where we're on the ground. It's time to change planes and get ready for takeoff. That may sound silly, but I think that's probably the best way to put it. So during my studies, the a few weeks ago now, we discussed, in fact, I think it was on 5/27, I did a short video about 5/28, about May 28th. And there was just so much, even I believe I even called it circumstantial evidence. There were just a lot of things that were kind of piling up. The more I looked at that day, it just seemed like there was something to it. And so I didn't say that it was the rapture or anything like that, because I don't set dates. But there was something interesting about that day, and there were just a lot of things kind of pointing at that day that I went through. And there were more things that I didn't go through, to keep it short. But so since that time, it's still been kind of just kind of in my spirit that I need to keep looking into it, because it was just like there were just so many things. It was so odd. And then it came and went. And I kept thinking that there was something maybe that was happening in the spiritual sense that we couldn't see or understand. And so I did a little bit, while I was studying and things like this, I did a little bit more just poking around, I guess. Kind of just fell into it. And it's really interesting, but that, I think I may have mentioned this in the video too, that day was also on the Jewish calendar this year, was Sivan 1, okay? So I went to a Jewish rabbinical website to just kind of see what they talk about that day, because they have a calendar and they give historical accounts from the Bible and from their own writings, things that occurred on any particular day. And I find that Sivan 1, which this year was May 28th, they call it the day when nothing happened. And I just thought, are you kidding me? It's the day when nothing happened. Yeah, because that sure makes sense now. We were all thinking, well, something's going to happen that day. Well, I didn't actually think it was the rapture, because I truly believe, and a lot of you may think I'm crazy, but I think that we're going to see Gog Magog, then the rapture happens. And I get that from Psalm 124, from Psalm 76. I get that from Luke 17. I get that from, when you compare that to Ezekiel 39:4. There's a lot of, and others. That's not all. And we've talked about them over the last year on some of the videos, some of the different reasons why I believe that. Also, I believe it because I think it's going to be God's last wake-up call to the world. Like, wow, that really just happened. God is who he says he is. And I believe a lot of people are going to wake up at the last second and finally accept the Lord as their Savior and King of their life. That's important. He's not just fire insurance. We are to make him the Lord of our lives, to guide our steps, and we should want to walk with him and abide with him each and every day. So anyway, the reason why the Sivan 1, or this year, May 28th, oddly enough, was called the day when nothing happened. I just had to laugh. I was like, are you kidding me, Lord? Anyway, let me just read this real quick from the website. I don't even remember what website it was. But anyway, it's a rabbinical website. This is in English. It says, this is related to the encampment at Sinai. So this goes back to Exodus. On the first of Sivan of the year 2448 from creation, 1313 BCE, 6 weeks after the exodus from Egypt, the children of Israel arrived at Mount Sinai in the Sinai desert and camped at the foot of the mountain as one man with one heart, in preparation for the receiving of the Torah from God. On this day, however, Moses did not say anything to them because of their exhaustion from the journey. And they call that the day that nothing happened. So, but what did happen on that day, kind of in the background, is it started a countdown. That is the day Sivan 1, when you go back and you look at many calendars that people have put together, Sivan 1, going through the Bible, Sivan 1 is sort of the start date. And then you've got 6 days later and 7 days later, and then you've got a 40 day and a 40 day and a 40 day. And I'm going through all that right now because, boy, is there a timeline in there that relates to now. And of course there is. I mean, just remember also it starts with a trumpet, and Israel being very afraid when they hear the trumpet. Yeah, there's a timeline in there. It's a little convoluted, but that's the study I'm working on right now. Anyway, once you see the pattern throughout the Bible, you'll keep recognizing that same pattern over and over, and it's really pretty amazing, actually. And Jesus, of course, we've talked about this many times. He's coming back 3 more times, and you see that in here too. There's the 40, the 40, the 40. But anyway, that's a whole nother subject. Today's teaching is going to be about something different. I'm not going to discuss that right now. What I'm supposed to be talking about right now is this war that's going on. So, I'm not going to go over all the things that you already know from watching other videos from news agencies and stuff like that, because that would be pointless and a waste of your time. But what I am going to do is tell you what I think is coming. Number one, Iran they've already begun, even though they're a little crippled right now, but they're trying to fire things back at Israel. They're having very little effect with that. It's only a matter of time when they realize that what they need to do is gather up their forces from around the region and attack Israel with boots on the ground, a la Gog Magog. I also would have to believe that something has to happen. I hate to say this, but something has to happen to America. We are recognized by the Muslim world as Israel's big brother, and of course they call us the big Satan, and Israel's the little Satan. To be able to take out Israel and actually amass a force of insurgents, or whatever you want to call them, to be able to amass a force that can invade Israel the way Gog Magog is described, America can't really be. We would either have to be preoccupied, or something would have to come against us to where we're not really a viable protector. And we know that's going to happen in some way, shape, or form, because God is the only one that's going to come to their aid. And even with isolationist views that a lot of Americans have now, and President Trump seems to be talking about, he kind of ran on that, no more wars and stuff like that. I still can't imagine, unless this is just as more scripted than I couldn't even imagine, but I just don't think that we would allow a huge invasion force from other nations to come into Israel and not protect them unless something has happened to us. So, I don't know, but what I do know is that if you have watched our video on the Song of Songs, yeah, you will know that we are in the climax, in the final climactic scenes of the greatest story ever told. The Song of Songs is the greatest song, just based on Song of Songs, King of Kings, Lord of Lords. It's the greatest, okay? It's a Jewish thing. So, if the Song of Songs begins with Jesus' first coming and ends with his millennial kingdom, then what we're living in now is the climactic conclusion to the greatest story ever told. So, this book right here, just one of my Bibles, is the greatest story ever told. It is also an encrypted war plan. And it was written in such a way that the enemy can figure out certain things, but there's a lot that God has planned that the enemy cannot figure out. And the Holy Spirit will decide what to reveal to us in this time right now and what to withhold. A lot has been sealed up over the last year or so. We have unsealed, I would say, a lot, but we don't know the time. We don't know the day. We know we're in the season. We know it's soon. And I would say as of May 28th, the day where nothing happened, I believe a countdown has begun, and it's starting to make sense, especially as I'm studying Exodus now, and looking at the events that are happening. However, I believe there will be ironic twists. I believe that there will be all sorts of things happening from this point on that we have not been able to foresee. And just as I said, now, understanding from Psalm 124, Psalm 76, that there's a pattern of war, then the rapture. We see that again, I mentioned earlier, like it's Luke 17, 37, and that connected to Ezekiel 39, verse 4. You see that there's war, there's vultures, and then the rapture. Okay? No one ever knew that or thought that, or that wasn't on anybody's radar a few years ago, but now it is. And I believe that Daniel chapter 12 is fully engaged at this point, that the things that were sealed up are now being unsealed. If we have eyes and ears, and if we're willing to listen. And for what purpose? Well, okay, the Lord, prophecy proves that God is God, first of all. It proves that Jesus is who he says he was and is. So there's a reason for it to be in there. He doesn't want us to be caught off guard. He doesn't want to come on us like a thief in the night. We're supposed to know. Again, we're not going to know the day or the hour. I never say that we are. And I don't really care. We're in the season. We see the things playing out right now. The end of the greatest story ever told is playing out right now. And we're watching it. And we're literally seeing things unfold. And it's like, wow, that looks different than what I thought. Even a year ago, for instance, I thought, that probably the fall of 2024, that seemed like that was kind of the last minute. It has to all happen by then. But now we've passed that, but it makes sense that it wasn't. Because again, 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 9, God doesn't want anyone to perish. It all makes sense, and we're still within the timeline that God encrypted in the Psalms. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then you have to get my book, even though it's 640 pages. You may not want to read all that. You may want to skim through it. Go to chapter 38. It's kind of the Cliff's Notes because there's 40 chapters. But that's an important book to leave behind because it is also a roadmap through the tribulation per God's word in the Psalms. Because he gives a pretty detailed account. Once you see the patterns, you can't unsee it. There it is. And so if you were stuck here in the trap that is going to be the world for 7 years, you will be able to navigate things a little bit better knowing what's coming. The middle of the tribulation period will be the 2028-2029 time frame, of course, which is when Israel will be 80 years old. And remember, Psalm 90, verse 10, at 80 we fly away. That's Israel flying away into the refuge. You can go back and connect that with their flight from Egypt also, where God says he mounted them up like, on eagle's wings and took them out of Egypt. Well, physically they weren't mounted on eagle's wings. That's all symbolic, okay? Well, that's happened. That's going to happen again, but it will be their flight out of Jerusalem, Judea, just like Jesus talked about in Matthew 24, and they will go into a refuge, Revelation 12, to be protected for 3.5 years. Okay, all of these things fit together now, and they all fit together on a timeline. So that's the time we're in. Iran and Israel are now fully at war. We'll just have to wait and see how this all plays out. But we are again, in the climactic scenes of the greatest story ever told, this book that we have here that God gave us is a war plan. He's not going to give everything to the enemy. He's working this thing out. He knows the end from the beginning. And we're kind of along for the ride right now. And it's pretty exciting because, well, it's exciting in one way because I know we're going home soon, and that's amazing. But, there are a lot of people that are still lost. And a lot of people, even the church is asleep. They don't know what's going on. I hear people say, oh, yeah, they're always fighting each other over there and stuff. And they don't even see the significance of it. They don't understand the day that we're living in. That's the Christian world. And then the rest of the world that's just completely clueless and coming against Israel. We're supposed to be praying for the peace of Jerusalem and Israel and God's people. We're supposed to be on their side. We're going to have to give an account one day, according to Jesus, for how we treated his children and what we did with Israel. I don't want to be on the wrong side of that. And I'm not saying that Israel does everything perfectly. That's silly. There's no government on earth. They're not really following the Lord in many ways. And most of them are secular. And, I talk about that for a long time. But the bottom line is they are still God's children. And we're supposed to be helping them, not coming against them. And you'll notice that the people that are against them are kind of, a lot of times, these crazy nut jobs out there. So anyway, that should tell you something too. Anyway, I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to get ready to do the study that I have prepared for this week. And I'd just like to remind everyone to be praying for all of those who are kind of, there's a whole group of people that are ready to be saved but aren't. And they need us. And they need us to be praying for them. I have a long list of people that I pray for. I can't always pray for everybody by name, but I have the list, and the Lord knows who they are. And I take that very seriously, because if no one's praying for them, it's probably not a lot gonna work in their favor as far as getting an opportunity in life to walk with the Lord before the trap is sprung. And I believe that day is coming very soon. So, God bless you. Thank you to everyone who likes and subscribes and also is praying for this little ministry. I've been torn in so many different directions the last couple of weeks. I have to apologize also for not being able to answer comments and things. It's just, I've been overwhelmed with so much. My son graduated. That's like, the little thing on the side, but doing lots of Bible study, trying to fit in work every day. And I was really hoping that at this time, by, when we really start seeing these things happening, that I wouldn't really have to work on cars anymore to make a living, that the Lord would provide in another way so that I could do this full time. That's what I was hoping and praying would happen. But you know what? The Lord's will is what the Lord's will is. And if that's not what he has for me, then that's totally fine too. I'll just keep going. I'm not going to say it's easy, because even while I'm working, my heart is on this. This is what I want to be doing. And so it's kind of hard to divide myself like that. But anyway, for all of you who pray for this ministry, I greatly appreciate it. There are a small handful of people that have been faithful in helping out financially, and I greatly appreciate that. So wonderful. You have no idea how much it does help. It doesn't mean that I can close up the shop and just do studies and teaching and stuff, but it allows me a few extra hours every day, and that is, you have no idea how much that means to me, to have a few extra hours to study every day and still be able to pay the bills and provide for my family. So I really appreciate it. Anyway, I'm going to sign off and then back on so that I can get this study done. And because next week I believe we might be talking about Exodus and putting all this together with the May 28th Sivan 1. I'm really excited about it. I've really just begun, and I hopefully can get it done within the week. But we'll just see what the Lord has. So thank you, God bless you, and take care.